Time for a twins pod.
Then I'm getting sucked off.
Yeah.
Okay, so Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. This happened in 2015.
2014.
2014.
Yeah. March 7th, March 8th, depending on the time zone you use.
Okay.
2014, yeah.
So for anybody that's been living on a rock for like the last 30 years, this plane's flying. Yeah. I guess it's going to Beijing.
Yep.
Right? And fucking disappears. Right?
Yeah, just completely disappears off the face of the earth. And right away, everybody's wondering what was going on. Like, if people who are a little bit older remember, we didn't know, like, where was the plane when it disappeared, like, what time. There was multiple times being thrown out there. For the first few days, especially, like, the search even changed its locations, oddly. And everybody should just be wondering, like, how does a Boeing 777, plane the size of a city block, just vanish?
Right. These things are equipped with GPS, right?
They have trackers in the engines.
Right.
We've got satellite. We have right now, there's 10,000 satellites under the United States military control. That's just United States, not even
I didn't
including
know
other
that.
countries. So even 10 years ago, just cut it in half, still 5,000 satellites. Like, can a plane really disappear? Like, we're not an enemy of the state anymore where we're like looking down through our satellites straight down and it's only real time. Like, it's all recorded. We can look back anytime. And the other thing, too, that a lot of people have to realize is, like, planes don't crash without leaving debris fields.
Right.
Especially in the ocean. Plane crashes in the ocean, all the debris is going to start scattering all over. You're going to have this debris field, like, tens of miles wide.
Right.
People are going to be picking it up out of the ocean. You're going to see it in satellites. Planes will be able to fly over and see it. They were searching with 40 boats and 40 planes afterwards. And the official searched for 3 years. Never found anything. Not a black box, not one seat cushion, not a body, not a piece of luggage, nothing. And people are going to say, like, oh, Ashton, but I heard that they found some debris. I thought they found some debris. And it turns out it wasn't the official search. It was this guy, Blaine Gibson, found some. He was featured on the Netflix documentary. But the more important part is where they found the debris.
Yeah, it said some debris washed up on shore in, forget the country.
In Africa.
Yeah.
And this is weird because they use these satellite pings, and all the search was like off the west coast of Australia.
Right.
And they're searching down along this 7th arc based on these satellite pings, and they're not finding anything at all. And all of a sudden, a year later, a few pieces of debris, and we're not talking a lot. Like, if you just percentage it out to the plane, it's less than 1% of the plane. Like, it's like I tell people, it's like if you found my finger and you were like, oh, this shows that Ashton died or he was murdered. You're like, that's just my finger, man. Like, planes can fly without a flapper on. They can land without a flapper on. So even the biggest piece, like, doesn't prove this plane crash. But
It's almost like someone planted the shit there. Huh?
well, people say that, but so the way I look at it is there's two options. Either the satellite pings that led us into the South Indian Ocean are fake or fraudulent or misinterpreted or whatever, or that debris must be fake. It has to be one or the other. And for me, I just think the satellite pings are fake. There's really no reason to believe the satellite pings are legit because there's no witnesses that saw the plane there. It supposedly crashed in the morning. It's a busy shipping route. We found nothing. There's no other company that said, oh, we also have some satellite pings and we saw it there. And the debris, though, is like 2,000 to 3,000 miles away. They did these drift analysis before they found the debris, and you can find it on the internet, and it shows that the currents flow to the east down there. The debris should have washed ashore in Africa or in Australia.
Right.
And they're like, oh, no, it's in Africa. And, like, we're talking, like, South Africa and, like, mainland Africa here, like, on the East Coast. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
So water doesn't float that way.
So, and it kind of floats up and around, so it can get there, but it would take, like, 2.5 years, and the debris is all being found in, like, 1 year.
Okay.
And so they do these, they kind of take some wooden boards and they throw it in the water to see what would happen.
Right,
and they realize right away there's no chance it's getting to Africa. And they go, just forget about that. That didn't happen. And then the Americans give them this flapper on, and they put it in the water and they weigh it down so it kind of sticks out of the water. And they go, okay, well, this is fine because the wind will blow it and what have you. And that's the closest piece. And they try to say that that's fine. But even with that one, there's barnacles on the part that's sticking out of the water. Well, how do you get barnacles on something that's sticking out of the water? It makes no sense at all. And then they look at the barnacles and they realize there's only 4 months of growth on these barnacles. Like, you're saying it was in the water for like 16 months. How can there be so little? So for me, the answer is this plane either didn't crash at all or it didn't crash at all near the South Indian Ocean. And when you look at all these other investigators that looked into it, almost all of them they base their opinion on the plane crash in the South Indian Ocean based on the satellite pings. If you just throw out those satellite pings, the story changes completely. And when you look at the map of like where all this debris is, and you look at this military base that's in the news right now, Diego Garcia military base, the UK just handed it back over to the indigenous people, except for the military base, which the United States and UK are going to control for another 99 years. It's like a perfect location where the debris could have been thrown in the water, for example, to wash ashore in Africa. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people say, what do you think happened to this plane? I go, well, there's this military base that's super secret in the Indian Ocean here where nobody's allowed to visit, and there's all this sketchy stuff happening to it. Mm-hmm. If that plane ended up there and they just ripped it apart, threw some in the water, there you go. That debris is going to be washing up where we found it.
Okay. Well, there's some video that we want to show everybody.
Yeah.
And I like to get your commentary while we look at the video.
Yeah.
But did you get both videos, Joe?
I got the satellite video. You want to watch the thermal? Or
Just watch the satellite video first.
Sure. Yeah, so this is the satellite video. Now, this video was published May 19th, 2014. And the description in it says received March 12th, 2014, which is 4 days after the plane disappeared.
Okay.
So unless this person's lying in their description, like this video has to be real. And you look at it, and we can see this orb come flying in at like hypersonic or supersonic speeds and immediately start tracking the plane. And then these other orbs come flying in as well. And you see this is a perfect triangle formation.
Right. Well, this plane's going 450 miles an hour, right?
Probably a little bit slower because it's low altitude. These clouds we see are cumulus clouds. They're very low altitude clouds. And the plane's turning as well. So this means this plane's actually probably flying pretty slow. It looks like it's actually doing like an emergency descent maneuver, potentially trying to land in the ocean. And these orbs spinning around it here, you see that zap that just happened. Like, when anyone that looks at this right away, they go, what are you saying, that aliens zapped the plane away right here? Because it's just so anomalous.
Yeah, everything's gone.
Yeah, everything's just gone. And now if you let it play after this as well, the person that is recording this like scrolls over to the right. They like to show us like this plane didn't like just kind of get cloaked or something like that. It's just straight up gone. And the person that's recording this, you saw that cursor just come over the screen right there at the end. This is a screen recording. Like, this is not somebody with a camera or something like that. And also, we could tell from the field of view, this cursor comes off the top right and then it goes off the top bottom left of the screen. Meaning, what we're looking at here is just a cropped version of a bigger field of view.
Right.
That mouse is probably some of the best evidence that's real because it's indicative of a Citrix session, which is a remote terminal session, like me logged in on my computer to a remote database.
Right, okay.
And where the mouse starts and ends is in the top right off the screen. So you can imagine there's a button up there that says start recording and then stop recording, and that's why it goes dark at the end there. So right away when you start to look at this evidence, you go, wow, like this looks like somebody who had military access to the database. They recorded this, and nobody really knows what our satellite capabilities are like. But I found there's something called the SBIRS system, Space-Based Infrared System, built by Lockheed Martin. The very first thing on Lockheed Martin's website is they go, Global Persistent Infrared Surveillance. And you're just like, okay, global persistent infrared surveillance.
Sounds like they're recording forever.
Recording everything forever. And they've got these huge scans where they're scanning the whole globe all the time. And you just go, okay, well, now I can figure out what's going on. It's not enemy of the state. We record everything in infrared. We beam that information down to computers, and the computers rebuild a map of the whole world, kind of like Google Earth, for example.
Yeah, right.
And the other indication is in that video on the bottom left. There's coordinates in the bottom left. It says NROL 22. Turns out NROL 22 is USA 189. These are National Reconnaissance Office launches of spy satellites. And that one in particular is the first launch of the SBIRS system in 2006. And I'm just going, okay, well now like this is getting really creepy. And it gets creepier. The coordinates, these coordinates actually accurately shift whenever that perspective changes. It's almost like someone was like holding down the middle mouse button or something and then they shift around. And the coordinates shift. One of the first things we were able to do is map those coordinates out on a map. And we found out that's the Nicobar Islands. This is the location where when we looked at those satellite pings from the plane, that's the location where they say, oh, this plane flew back across Malaysia, flew over to the Nicobar Islands, and then made a sharp turn and flew down in the South Indian Ocean for like 6 hours. And you're like, wait, so We found nothing in the South Indian Ocean, and these coordinates in these videos indicate the location where this plane supposedly made this sharp turn into the South Indian Ocean. You know, if you really boil it down, you've got plane disappearing over the South China Sea, odd. Then it's going to Penang, the closest airport you would go to in an emergency. It doesn't land there. And then it goes to this location where we're seeing these coordinates right here in the Nicobar Islands. And then after that, supposedly they claim it went into the South Indian Ocean where we found nothing. For me, this is really strong evidence where it's like I can start to build like an actual logical event, series of events of what happened to this plane. Like something emergency happened when the plane went dark. They couldn't land at Penang for whatever reason. And then all of a sudden, this plane's getting zapped straight out of space-time right there.
Right.
You
So
know?
the video we just witnessed, you think that the person that was playing with the mouse, you think that was an air traffic controller or?
No, if that's a spy satellite database, like spy satellite secrets are like some of the most closely guarded secrets. There was like a contractor just last year who was convicted of leaking satellite imagery of Africa or something like that. And they were facing capital punishment, death penalty, just for that. So like, and when you look at those videos, you can start to realize why that would be the case. Because, you know, knowing what our surveillance capabilities are, if we have full-time motion video recording of basically the whole planet, and you can pull it back up, because that video was not recorded in real time. Like technically, they're recording the information in real time, but someone can log into a database and go pull up the Nicobar Islands at 1840 UTC on March 7th, and then they can see a playback of it, and they can move the screen around however they want, kind of like how Google Earth works, but you can just pick your time.
And that's what we just witnessed.
That's what
Somebody
we're
going
seeing there.
back trying to determine what happened to that airplane.
Yeah, I mean, I even think I've identified the leaker as this guy, Lieutenant Commander Edward C. Lynn, because I said, well, wow, we really come down on people that leak this kind of stuff. And if that's real footage and they leaked that, then there has to be some trail, like, some charges that they face or what have you. And so I started just digging around on like Wikipedia of all the names of the people that were charged. A lot of the famous people like the Chelsea Mannings and the Edward Snowdens and stuff like that. None of them like fit the bill at all. Edward C. Lynn, when I got to this guy, and he's completely unknown. Nobody knew about him really. He checks every single box. This guy was on this super secret spy plane program called the VPU-2 Wizards. He got assigned to it February 2014, right before the plane disappears. And I've got a quote from his lawyer saying that the investigation began April 2nd, 2014. And you're like, that's a 1 month window between when the plane disappeared here. And that video says it was received March 12th, 2014 on some random YouTube account that has like 100 followers.
That's one hell of a coincidence.
And it gets weirder. His lawyer has another quote saying that the classified information in question is available on the internet that he supposedly leaked, that they came after him so hard for. They came after him for espionage, which like they're trying to throw this guy in prison for life. And it was the first case of charging somebody who's an active duty military member in the Navy with espionage in like 50 years since the Cold War.
Yeah, espionage. What exactly is espionage?
That's like we're giving secrets to our enemies.
Okay.
They thought that what Edward C. Lynn was doing was he was exchanging information with China. That's what they had alleged.
It's always China.
It's always China.
Maybe he was trying to release the information to the public.
Yes, especially if you think, and that's exactly what I would think as well, is because when you look at that, you go, man, nobody's ever going to figure out what happened to this plane unless they see this footage, because that thing is gone, right? Like, where is it? And we'll get into the motivations as well more because, if that's United States technology that we're looking at there, which I've identified that as like our most secret hypersonic plasma technology, then China or Russia even seeing that footage, they can reverse engineer and figure that technology out. We would call that technology zero-day technology, which means that the moment you show it to your adversary, now you can't use it again anymore because they can make deterrents for it. They can reverse engineer it themselves. Because a lot of people ask, like, if we have this, why would we not use it? It's because it's like your trump card. You don't play your trump card when the opponent has like a 2 or whatever, right? You wait until the last possible moment to play it.
Right.
And this is why the United States government would come down so hard on anybody that leaked that footage, because you're like, you just screwed us over. What if the guy that saw that, he just thought it was aliens and UFOs because he wouldn't know about the technology either.
Right.
And then the government is like, no, dude, you just screwed up big time. You just told China about our most secret stuff ever out there.
Like, am I going to lose some rank? Nope, you're going to lose your life.
No, 100%. So they throw this guy in prison and they won't let him talk to the media, even in pretrial detainment. And everything about his case is super sketchy. Like, they end up having to admit there was no evidence he exchanged any information with anyone from China. They even sent like a honeypot at him. And they start charging him with prostitution. They're like, dude, you're trying to put me in prison for life for espionage and you're throwing a prostitution charge on there?
Right. Anybody knows anything about the Uniform Court of Justice, that's a kangaroo court.
Yeah.
Many soldiers do not win their case at all.
No, 100%. And like, you have no chance of probably winning, right? If the government if they want to put you away. So it's clear that they actually abused him in pretrial detainment. Like, he's recorded saying that he was mistreated. These goon squad people would like, put him out in the cold and ruffle his cell and what have you all the time. They were clearly trying to get him to like basically toe the line. And he ended up doing that. He took a plea deal. And so all the espionage charges were dropped. They had no evidence for it. They just got him on the release of classified information charges. And he ended up issuing this statement that was basically like, nobody should do what I did. What I did was so dumb. And when you think about it with context of the videos, you're going, oh, they told him, like, you just gave away our secrets. This guy was a patriot by all accounts. Like, his family was even saying, like, he's not a bad guy. Like, why are the government coming at him so hard? So even after this espionage charges go away, they ended up getting him for 9 years in prison, which for just release of classified information, that is way, way too much. People that have similar charges, they get like, a few months or a year. He's getting 9 years. Whatever he did had to be huge.
Well, if you're Joe Biden, none.
Yeah, if you're related to the right people in this world, then you get nothing and you don't face consequences.
We have a thermal video as well, right? When you mentioned the term orb, what is an orb?
Yeah, so what these orbs are, I mean, I just call them orbs because that's how you would talk to like, anybody who doesn't understand what we're looking at, because it looks like a sphere of energy when we look at these videos. And this here is the drone video. This is some kind of MQ-1 Reaper drone or MQ-1C with an aerial surveillance package underneath the wings.
Yep.
And you can tell that the operator here, like, this is accurate camera shake. It increases when they're zooming in here. The operator's even struggling to keep the plane in focus, and this would be because of the lag with respect to like the operators in a remote location.
Right.
So there's a little bit of a lag there. Now, when this zooms in, you're going to see this very distinct heat signature on these orbs. You can actually already see these dark lines.
Yes.
These dark lines are in front of the orbs. That's a huge key that what we're looking at here is not conventional propulsion at all. And when you see this field around these orbs with this heat signature, you can tell right away that we're not looking at like a metallic structure. This is like a field around something. Now, what I've come to realize is this is something called an exotic vacuum object. This is made, this was discovered by somebody named Ken Shoulders. He was an engineer who worked on inventing microelectronics and like some really advanced technology back in like, I want to say the 60s. Richard Feynman, who of the Manhattan Project, ended up having to apologize to Ken Shoulders because he thought that this idea of these exotic vacuum objects wasn't possible, this state of plasma where they form these self-regulating, self-sustaining structures.
Yeah. Well, sorry. What the hell is that?
Yeah. So what we're looking at right here is a wormhole. This is the first ever wormhole that's ever been visualized on, as far as I can tell, in sci-fi or in real life.
Black hole.
Why is it black like that? Yeah, because this is cold. This is thermal, and we can tell based on the engine. So this is
Extremely cold.
yeah, this is an endothermic event. An exothermic event would be an explosion. So if this was an explosion, we'd expect to see this white hot, you know, and a release. This is an absorption of energy as opposed to a release of energy. And this is where physics starts to come into play, where you start to realize that what we perceive in our universe as an empty vacuum, you know, of space is not actually empty. Like, we are sitting in a sea of energy. Imagine being on top of this sea of energy. And in that case, what is it that we're looking at here? We're looking at an extraction of that energy, like lowering the water level of that energy. So this is the part that these videos end up showing physics that mainstream physics doesn't understand. Like, Einstein's equations say you can, and like Dirac's theory of the sea of energy show that you can have negative energy levels, but everybody thinks of negative energy as this exotic, misty purple substance when that's not what it is at all. It's really just a matter of looking at, like, we are in this equilibrium of energy. Like, if you were to get in the bathtub and you get to a point where you don't feel the hot or the cold in the bathtub anymore, but it's still hot. If somebody else were to touch it, they would feel it being hot. That's the reason why we don't feel that energy all around us, but it's there.
Got our new giveaway. You asked for it, we got it. Man, this is a 69 Chevy Camaro. We give away American muscle here. This is actually a race car, standard, 6-speed, Yanko version. Did you tell him it had a 540 big block in it? It's got over 700 horsepower in now. Did you hear that? This car got over 700 horses. That's crazy. How did they get 700 horses up under the hood? That's that white American engineering right there. That's what founded this country. Go to officialhodgetwins.com. Anything you buy from the site, get you automatic. And it'll win. Yeah.